Ron, Michael, you both there?
Yes, sir. Yep.
You're all set. Hey, Ron, nice to meet you, man.
Hey, man, how's it going?
It's going great. How about yourself?
Not too bad. Just getting the day started and day off today, so I can actually sit and relax and do some stuff.
Right on. Well, where are you located at?
I'm in Baltimore.
Oh, Baltimore, gotcha. So we're in the same time zone then, yes? I'm in New York.
Yeah. We're both Eastern.
Nice. Great. Always good to have a day off, man. I feel like these last few days have been running around, and I don't know, man. Something's got to be up in the air. I feel like everybody's getting sick. I've had 3 cars break down on me this past week. Like, it's just been that kind of week, man. I'm not an astrology kind of guy, but if you told me some shit was in retrograde right now, I'd be like, you know what? I believe it.
Yeah. I work in retail, so it's getting close to that holiday time, so everybody's driving everybody crazy.
Oh, 2 more days and it's the most miserable day ever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so you all set and ready?
Yes, sir. I got my Dr. Pepper and my phone's mostly charged, so I think that's about all I need.
Yeah. Hey, so first of all, I want to thank you for taking the time, and first of all, introduce yourself.
I'm Mike from King Falcon. But yeah, I guess I was saying I'm not really super into astrology, but it's been one of those weeks where if you told me something was in retrograde, I would believe it.
Yeah, that's what I was just joking about. I'm like, he was just talking about weird shit, and then all of a sudden my phone was like, nope, drop.
Yeah, again, we were talking about it before. I feel like everybody I know has a cold. I've had 3 cars break down on me in the past, week and a half. So it's been, it's been one of those weeks, man. Give me a break.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's just talk about, King Falcon. What can you tell the fans, who don't know who your band is, the sound of the band, of, what you're, what you guys are trying for to, in the King Falcon world?
Well, you mean the old elevator pitch, of course. That's what everybody likes to ask.
Yeah.
But no, so look, we're definitely alternative rock. So I mean, if you like Black Keys, White Stripes, Arctic Monkeys kind of thing, you'll definitely like our band. But I think we are sort of in a unique space as well, where it's a little bit more musician-y sounding. And I am particularly excited about all of the new stuff that we have been recording recently, because I've been listening to it and I've got it here and I've seen kind of how the band has grown. And I'm at that really exciting spot where I feel like I have a little secret and I just can't wait for everybody else to hear it. I got all these new songs and it's very alty and summery sounding, and just I'm really excited for all the new stuff to come out. But I am sitting here in the studio looking at half a record on my computer that is not released yet. I can't wait for everybody to hear it next year.
Nice. We'll talk about the self-titled album. How was it like recording that, and the decisions to put what songs you want and what songs you didn't want?
Well, it was great, and it was also a little bit scary because it's the first record, so we kind of have to figure out what the band sounds like, So in making the first record, there's only 11 songs on the record. I think we wrote 50 or 60 before we actually settled on those final 11. And there's a lot of, if we go through those stuff, there's a lot of weird stuff in there. We had definitely some more metal-y sounding songs. We had a dance track in there. There's a kind of a reggae-ish sounding one there. And a lot of it was just sort of trying stuff to see what felt right. And then I think once we landed on Everybody's Down, which was kind of halfway through the writing process, that's when we were like, wait a second, this is sort of how this is supposed to sound. And whenever we play that one live, that's kind of the song that we get most of the reaction from the crowd from. People really get into that song. So the cool thing about playing so many shows like we do is you sort of get to beta test songs and see what works with the crowd and what doesn't. But yeah, it was a massive undertaking. We definitely learned a lot, and it was so cool because that was the first time in my life that I've ever actually recorded an album beginning to end. Usually it's one song at a time, but we went in on Monday. We locked ourselves in that studio for 8 full days, and then we came out and everything was fully tracked and recorded in 1 week after a year and a half of writing. So that was a cool experience as well.
Yeah. When you say you wrote, you had that many songs, was it hard to kind of narrow it down to, because obviously you're not going to put 50, 60 songs on an album. So was it hard to narrow it down to the
I think everybody everybody sort of felt, and by everybody I mean the guys in the band at the time, like the guy who produced the album, the label, everybody sort of felt similarly about 10 of them. The funny thing is the only song that was really a question was Rabbit Gets the Gun. So Rabbit Gets the Gun, I think, has the most interesting story because we wrote that song was a complete afterthought. I showed up to a session in Nashville to do a write, and the people that I was writing with kind of had already written a whole song, and that's not normally how I work. Usually, like, if I'm writing with somebody, I like to get there and nobody has anything, and we do it from scratch, and it's like something that we make together in the room. But this person was really excited about the song, so we spent the whole session working on this song. And I don't even remember what that song was called because it ended up not making the record, but we found ourselves with like an extra 20 minutes at the end of the session, kind of before I had to leave and catch my flight. So we scribbled out Rabbit Gets the Gun in those 20 minutes and made a super quick, really, really crummy demo. And I forgot about it. And then here we are sitting on that first day of recording the album, kind of going through those songs, making sure that we're fully committing to these songs that are going to be on the record. And we come across Rabbit Gets the Gun, and Marshall, who's the guy who produced the record, is like, dude, you never sent me this song. Like, where was this one from? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's just like a little thing we did in 20 minutes. He's like, no, you're crazy. This is going on the record. So he sent that to the label. I got a phone call from our label, and they're like, how come you didn't send us this song? And I was like, guys, it's just like a silly little song we wrote in 20 minutes. And then it ended up making the record. So I love telling that story about Rabbit Gets the Gun because it's done so well. And we get such a great reaction from the crowd, but like that whole song was a complete afterthought and almost didn't even make it on the record.
Yeah, which is cool because that's one of the songs that when I listen to it's one of the songs I drove me closer to the band. I like that song. How was it like making the video for that though?
Honestly, I was so sore after that. Like, so the actor in that is a guy named Wolfgang Nelson, and he is the nicest guy. Super cool. We went out for dinner afterward, played some pool. Like, I love that dude. But when he acts, he commits to it. So I like really got tossed around for 3 hours in the rabbit suit making that video. The next day I woke up, like my neck hurt, my back was hurting, like I was all black and blue and all that stuff. But it was great. I think the video came out awesome. We had some cool vintage instruments in the video, which is always fun because I am such a nerd. Like that bass is from the 70s, and I think the Jazz Master that I was playing was from, I think it was a 62. But yeah, it was so much fun making that video. We did it in St. Louis. I've never been to St. Louis before. We got to go up into the Arch, which if you've ever been, it's very cool. It's kind of like 1960s sci-fi space age thing. It was a good weekend.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And like I said, you being a New York band and so many iconic New York bands, bands have come out of New York. How is the tension and how is like the camaraderie of like New York bands now versus like in the 60s and the 70s or the 80s?
Well, I mean, I can't super speak about how it was back then because, I wasn't really around for that. But what I can tell you is this, being a New York band in New York, it's very easy to get lost within all the noise. So when you leave New York, though, people think it's cool that you're from New York, and they're like, hey, you guys are from big city. What's it like? What it's like in the big city is, well, you got Madison Square Garden, you've got Terminal 5, you've got, Billy Joel, you've got all these big acts. So, I mean, you're really competing with a totally different market. Versus when we play in Nebraska, the shows are awesome because it's Nebraska. I mean, I love Nebraska. This isn't me saying anything about Nebraska, but there's decidedly less going on in Nebraska than there is in Manhattan. So the scene in New York is a little bit tough because there's just so much competition, and people in New York don't hang out places. Everybody has a short attention span here, and me too. I mean, I'm a New Yorker. I love New York. Born and raised here. Like I will defend New York to the death. But people here definitely have short attention spans, and I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. So, sometimes a rock show is not as exciting as going out to a million bars and doing all the other things that New York has to offer. So New York is actually, like, if any other kind of up-and-coming bands, I would recommend you skip New York City and you go, like, upstate to Syracuse. It's a way better scene up there.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you prefer doing those shows that are out of your city versus the hometown shows?
Yes, it's also so much easier to park. I'm always the one that drives the van, and driving it in Manhattan is absolutely miserable.
Awesome. Well, this is a question I always ask, especially young bands. I always ask this: if you could have any two bands take you on tour, and they'll say yes, we're going to take you. What two bands would you want to tour with?
Oh man, I mean, I think the first one for me would probably be Tame Impala because I don't know that musically it would be a perfect fit. I think it would be pretty good, but I am just such a huge fan of the band and of Kevin Parker, and I mean, especially the Currents record, but even the earlier stuff like Lonerism is such a great album. Like all of that music had such a huge effect on me, and it also had such a huge influence on the way that I think about production. Like all of the ornamental kind of ear candy stuff that he does is what makes that music so great. And of course, obviously, the beat is there, the groove is there, the melodies are there. But every time I go back and listen to that stuff, there's like a new line or little thing that you can kind of hear. You listen on a nicer set of headphones or speakers, and you're like, oh, I didn't hear that last time. So I absolutely love Kevin Parker. And the other one, I would love to go on tour with Bad Omens. I think that would be such a good match for us, and those guys are awesome. I don't know them personally, just like musically they're awesome. So those are probably the two I would think of. But there's honestly not a lot of bands that I wouldn't like to go on tour with because I just love touring, and I love playing with other bands. So but those are the first two that come to mind, I think.
With with the touring and stuff that you've done, has there been a favorite venue or a city that you've played in?
So I could tell you, well, not to be a downer, I could tell you my least favorite. I think that's a fun story. I hate being in Indiana, and this is nothing against the people in Indiana, but it's of all the Midwestern places, it's the only place that has nothing going on, and somehow every time we drive through, we break down in Indiana. So I just have I have this fear of being in Indiana and being in Fort Wayne, and mind you, I'm there all the time. Like I've recorded there like 3 times in the past few months. Like I'm there all the dang time, but every time I go there, it's the only place that when we're on tour and I ask people, what do you think about the place? They're like, man, I'm from somewhere else and I'm trying to get back to being somewhere else. And it's the only place that's like that. Honestly, touring has been really great. Like, I bring up Nebraska. We got a lot of fans in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'll never forget, we played a show and we get there like 3-4 hours early, and it's kind of like a sleepy little area, and it's like the middle of a weekday. And there's a kid who comes running up to me, and I'm not in my stage clothes at all. I got like dad New Balances on, got like sweatpants, it's early. And this kid comes running up to me, and he's like, "Oh my God, you're Mike from King Falcon. I saw you guys on a TikTok. I know that song Ready, Set, Go." He asked me for like an autograph. I was like, this is crazy. Like, people know it's in Nebraska. And that was the first time that ever happened to me. So I always have a little bit of a soft spot for Nebraska because of that. And also the shows that we've played there have always been good. And it surprised me. I mean, Omaha is such a cute little town, and there's so much going on. There's a lot of thrift stores, and there's a really nice ice cream shop on kind of the corner in the main town there. I think last time I went there, I had if it was graham cracker or like Nilla wafer. That's kind of my speed. It was so good, and the people there were so nice. And yeah, so Nebraska definitely surprised me. But if I could avoid going to Indiana again, I probably would. And it's not because of the people. It's actually because of the lack of people.
Yeah. So, and another question I always ask everybody, which is kind of a tough question too, is if you could bring back one dead musician, who would you want to bring back?
Oh, that's a really tough one. I'm gonna pick kind of an oddball choice. Jeff Buckley.
Okay.
I'm gonna say Jeff Buckley because he's so incredible, and I think that truly we did not get enough from him. My backup answer to that would be: are you familiar with the band Hers at all?
Yeah.
So, I mean, you know about what happened to those guys, and that one was pretty recent. So I think those would be my top two. Everybody I feel like always takes, Kurt Cobain or like Jimi Hendrix or somebody big like that. Not to say that Jeff Buckley isn't big. He's obviously very famous. I just think he's maybe not the first one you'd think of.
Yeah.
But it would either be Jeff Buckley or the guys from Hers.
I like that dude. Like you said, a lot of times when people think of the things, you want to think of like the biggest stars, but sometimes it's nice to get those you never know what those mid cards or people who were on the up, could have done if they would have had a little bit more time.
Totally. Every single time I listen to the song "So Real," it really gets me kind of deep, And I know the Jeff Buckley song everybody knows is "Hallelujah," and yeah, that song is cool, but it's kind of like "Stairway to Heaven," where it's a standard, and if I never hear it again, it's probably too soon. Not because I don't like the song, but because I've already heard it a million times.
Yeah.
"So Real" is such an incredible song, beginning to end. The melodic choices are so unique. The arrangement is unique. Like, there's no song like that, and he was just so incredible. Also, kind of eerie that there's like lyrics about drowning and stuff in that song, and obviously that's kind of what happened. So, yeah, and hers, I just think that I sort of like with us, with our first record, toward the end of the writing process, we dialed in on the sound. I think like the last song that we wrote on the album was "On Your Soul," and in my mind, that's sort of the song that I would like to take the band in directionally, because that song kind of has the ornamental stuff from Tame Impala that I was talking about, and it's a little bit more alt sounding. And very much like how at the end of our writing process, I think we dialed in on the sound, I think that hers at the end of that record really dialed in on the sound. And the fact that they didn't get a chance to lean into that as a band, and that was taken from them, is absolutely criminal. So that's why I picked those two.
Yeah, for sure. And then I'm a huge horror buff guy. Are you into horror movies? And if you are, like, what's your favorite horror movies?
I mean, I like horror movies as much as the next guy. I'm not like a super deep horror fan. I mean, I like the Saw movies. Kind of basic. I don't know. I didn't really like Blair Witch Project. That just seemed like somebody filming potato cam on their iPhone very shakily. I could probably go without seeing that one again. I don't know. What was that movie with Will Smith, and there's like the serial killer, but he's killing people based on the 7 deadly sins? Is that movie called Seven?
Yeah. That's not Will. Yeah. That's Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
Oh, I might be mixing that up with I Am Legend then, because it's been a long time since I've seen that. That sounds right. Anyway, I remember that movie being really good, but clearly it's been a long time since I've seen it, and I don't remember it well enough to even know who was in it, because like Morgan Freeman is very different than Will Smith, but whatever. Yeah, I guess I'm not a big horror guy, man. I'm sorry.
What about leaning into like the holidays now, Christmas movie? What about Christmas movies?
I can tell you that the Christmas movie that I have seen most is Elf, and that one is because my parents were just really big Will Ferrell fans. So every single year growing up, it was like, all right, we're gonna sit around and we're gonna watch Elf. So I pretty much have that one memorized, I think. What else? That's probably the best one, I think. Not a big Christmas movie guy. I'm not to sound like a Scrooge, but I'm not a big Christmas music guy either, which is ironic because we do have that song, "Dear Mrs. Claus." But I think you do need a Christmas song, and you do have to flex that muscle as a writer. But I don't think that we'll be getting the yearly King Falcon Christmas song. I think that's probably more of a one and done sort of thing.
Well, awesome. Well, do you have any plans for 2025 that you can talk about?
Well, at this moment, we're actually booked out on tour all the way through March, kind of like toward the end of March, and we're starting to book April. So King Falcon will be all over the place. We're even going to the West Coast. We're going to be in Vegas. We're going to be in San Diego. We're going to be everywhere in the middle. So that's going to be a whole lot of fun. And again, I am in the middle of working on a whole bunch of music. I am literally looking at half an album sitting in front of me that is unreleased. But I am not going to give any dates yet because I haven't spoken to the label about when we're going to release this stuff. So we're going to have that conversation and then figure it out. But we do have so much content. We're filming music videos, and we're going to be on the road. And I'm also going to be doing a lot more like social media content in general, and also some nerd stuff. Like, a big thing about me is that I am just a huge guitar nerd. Like, there are guitar players out there, but I am a nerd to the extent of like I like vintage guitars, and I could tell you the difference between like month to month of what happened with Fender. And some people care about this sort of thing, so I will be making a lot more content around that, which for some people I think would be very exciting, and maybe for some people probably more tedious. But we're just over here making stuff, and yeah, that's kind of it.
Cool. Yeah. Hopefully, when you guys start playing, you guys come around Baltimore area. We'll definitely like to check you out and come to a show and talk face to
I
face.
gotta look at the dates, but I think we are actually coming to Baltimore.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'll have to look and see if it is, and we'll have to hook up for that one.
That would be great.
Hey, man. Well, anything else you want to say to the fans before I let you go?
No, sir. I think I got everything. If anybody wants to hit us up on like Instagram or any of the other social platforms, the cool thing about us is if you DM us, it'll most likely be me, and I will answer it as quickly as I can. So how cool is that? You just get to DM a band.
Yeah, that's the crazy thing about the social media now is like it's so much easier to get a hold of, like, especially newer and upcoming bands. I mean, you're not going to get a hold of the Rolling Stones on Instagram and TikTok, but it's cool that like these new up and coming bands, you can just be like, "Hey, I saw your show," and then all of a sudden you get a message back, and it's like it's actually the band, not somebody's team.
It's cool, and that kind of interaction on social media is so much more special to me than I don't know, us filming a silly video and then that going viral. Like the one-on-one personal thing is really that's really what this is all about, I think.
Hey, man. Well, you have a good rest of your day, man, and like I said, hopefully we'll hook up soon.
Yes, sir. Thanks so much.
Oh, yeah, man. You have a good one, man.
You too.